share my screen and we can start our session. Now, just give me a moment. Hi guys, let me know when you can see it and we'll start. Okay, perfect. So guys, welcome to the Access Agile Festival. And at this session, we're going to talk about do's and don'ts in terms of applying and implementing different Agile metrics, right? So we're going to share our experience working in different environments. And also we encourage all of you to step up and share your experience as well, okay? So Alan, would you like to say a few words about our festival, our vision?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Yury. And yeah, welcome everybody one more time. Nice to see you all. Our vision for Access Agile Festival, actually, it's worldwide, it's free, and co-created together with people all around the world. We want to enhance everybody and enable, and give people opportunity to learn, share, create this community where everybody are welcome. And of course, we are focusing also on diversity, inclusion. And if you haven't visited our webpage, accessagile.org, you can see that there is some resources and there's some other useful things. You can check it out. And of course, you have already checked our meetup groups. And they are, this festival started yesterday with all the speeches, and it will end on Saturday. So please share if you have any comments, or if you want to share some feedback or something. You can also use this hashtag Access Agile Festival. And maybe a little bit background if you are not aware how all these things started. Actually started a year ago, where a couple of guys from UK talk about if they should celebrate 20 years of Agile Manifesto. And then they start creating a kind of festival for that to celebrate. And the original plan was to have like 100 speakers, but then we got around, I think, 800 speakers. And then the whole festival was for a month, the whole February. And we had around, I think, 2 million people who joined these different sessions, and it just started growing. And it's really, really pleasure for me, and I believe also for Yury, to be part of that, to help with organization of the festival, be ambassador, and we all this work what we are doing, it's on voluntary basis, but it's really, really pleasure to be part of that.
Okay.
Yury, back to you.
Right. Okay, guys. So let's start our session. So first of all, we'd like to cover the do's, right? So some things we'd like to take into consideration when we start implementing Agile metrics in our teams, right? No matter whether it's a brand new team or some mature Agile team, okay? So first of all, we'd like to talk about some aspects that are really important when it comes to implementing Agile metrics in our projects, right? So the first aspect we'd like to cover is this one, the quality over quantity, right? So it's important because many projects where some teams just starting to implement Agile practices, managers or leaders of these teams, they say, okay, so we'd like to implement some Agile metrics. So what can we do? Well, okay, we know there are lots of different metrics. So what would be the best idea to do in our environment? So, and they say, okay, we're going to implement them all. Well, in fact, it's not that it's not that easy. In fact, it's really let's say a poor decision to implement a lot of metrics, right? So, and the wise decision would be to implement a small amount of metrics. So this is really important to understand that we need some quality outcomes over quantity, right? So this is it. Alan, would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, I agree with Yury, and sometimes when we're focusing more on quantity than quality, then we start creating, someone call it vanity metrics, where we just have it, so it looks nice on the dashboard, but that's not what we are aiming for.
Yeah, that's right. So the next concept is the people. So metrics are people too. We've got this statement here, and this is really important because we need to understand, right, where the data is coming from. We need to know that. And also we need to understand the necessities of the team, because sometimes you can just apply a set of metrics, but these metrics they're useless because the team just say, okay, we've got these metrics in place, but what should we do with them? So these metrics, they just carry no value. So, and this is important, to listen to your people, understand your team, and only after that, only after you analyzed the context of the environment, you should start to thinking about what would be the best set of metrics to apply. Alan, back to you.
Yes, and we see it also pretty much connected with the first one, quality over quantity, because when we have a people and when we work with the teams, we should focus that people understand why we need these particular metrics, and if we start pushing and have this quantity, then people will actually focus more to have these metrics looks nice than producing some work which is beneficial and valuable both for our customers but also for organization itself.
That's right. That's right. And the last aspect here is that measure only what you need. And this is important because, well, in the modern organizations, we've got lots of data. So lots of data, and we can analyze them all. Yeah, of course we can, but should we do that? This is in fact counterproductive if we do that. So we only need to identify, to narrow down what is important, what are some pain points for the team or for our project we'd like to attack, and only after that we can go ahead with our set of metrics. Okay, so now the question to audience. So have you ever had any experience like what we just covered? So like when the management team tries to implement lots of metrics at once? Or it's usually, in your context, in your project, it's usually some small sets of metrics, or even you don't have any metrics at all. We'd like to hear you.
Was it Susanna?
Hi there. Can you hear me
Hello.
okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. An example I'll give, not from my current place of work, but from a previous place of work, was leadership team's obsession with DORA metrics. Because it was DevOps. Oh, there's this dashboard. We've got 4 metrics. It's all going to be perfect. Everybody's going to know what they're doing with it. And we don't need to communicate with anybody about it because the Agile coaches can just do that. And it was very annoying and a great big failure.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's complicated. That's complicated because there's no transparency from what you just said. And it's just a huge dashboard with a sets of metrics. No one understands why is that, so why is it here?
Exactly. No, everything that you're communicating there, I'm just feeling it. That exactly matched what happened in that situation.
Absolutely. Totally agree. We have a Soraya, if I pronounce correctly, also raise a hand.
Absolutely correctly pronounced. So what I saw also in the current job, but the previous one, previous assignment was the management was preoccupied with cycle time. So I had this huge discussion because it is important to understand, if the team delivers what they want to deliver within the given time. But for me, it was really old-fashioned to only look at cycle time and not look at other elements that actually impact the cycle time.
And did they have a lead time along with cycle time, or only cycle time to measure and to analyze?
They had more measurement metrics, but the most important one was cycle time, But well, maybe I'm already going ahead of things, but I like to look more at the people side as well, because we can push on cycle time, but if we don't look at how the team cooperates and well, how they intervene or collaborate with other teams, then cycle time is just a metric, but it doesn't say everything.
Right, because cycle time is very useful when we talk about some operational, like IT operations, support, maintenance teams. But if we're talking about some development teams, it's not that, let's say, it's not that efficient in terms of that we've got lots of dependencies. And when we've got lots of dependencies, so it is sometimes complicated, and you just need to wait until the other team is done with their work, and then you can go ahead and proceed to complete your items. And so that will result in a huge cycle time. So, and well, there's nothing we can do about it sometimes. So it's not that really efficient. So, and if we can take a look into these metrics, I would say, okay, our cycle time is too long. We'd like to improve this indicator, but sometimes it's just not possible, and you need to attack other aspects. So this is what we talked about, that it's important to understand a set of metrics we'd like to implement, not only one metric at once, and just stick to this metric to try to improve something in our environment.
Indeed, because of course it's linked with predictability, but sometimes the team just can't help it, as you just mentioned, because there are a lot of other factors impacting, well, whatever they can do.
Absolutely. And what I also experience, leadership or management, they are not leaders, they are managers. They are pushing to fill in a backlog, and then you add all the crap, 6 months ago, and I said, what about this leading time? Okay, what to do about it? So It is about finding balance.
Yeah, that's right. So, well, another aspect we'd like to cover is about lagging versus leading indicators, right? So, well, how many of you is familiar with the concept of vanity metrics? You can raise your hand or just say yes, no.
Thank you.
Okay. So for those who are not familiar with this, so vanity metrics, they look good, but you can't use it to improve anything, right? So and we've got some example here. So it's a number of likes on your social media page. Well, in fact, itself, this metric won't help us to define some next steps. Okay, so you can take a look at the number of likes and you say, okay, so we've got this number of likes. So, but what does it mean for our product? What would be next steps to implement for our product? What would be some enhancement or features or defect fixes? Well, we do not know. It's really unhelpful when it comes to to analyzing and improving the team performance, right? So Alan, would you like to talk a little bit about lagging and leading indicators?
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. When we talk about lagging indicator, it is usually when we look back into. I just need to admit someone in. We are looking back. How was previously, like a financial review or some results we received in the previous quarters or something, and that could give like a false positive that we can kind of predict the future, that we will continue having this good revenue, but we don't know because if we didn't agree, or if we didn't made a research or something with the users to see how people behave and use our product, then it could be just too clumsy to predict the future. But one of these things what we encourage people to focus on, it's about these leading indicators. So when you look forward, and based on, of course, on the historical data, but when you look forward and start engaging with your customers or clients, and then you receive their feedback, then it will give you good indication how future might look like.
Right. So one of the examples of leading indicators is this one that we placed here is a net promoter score, and this is a good indicator because at least you could understand something from it, right? So how is your product doing, right? So and this is something we could take into account. We could take into consideration, especially when it comes to the role of the product owner, where we need to understand how our product is doing to be able to identify some next steps and improve our customer satisfaction score as well. Yeah. Okay. Any questions or any experience you'd like to share, guys? Okay, let's go ahead. Right. This one is about how should we coach the management team, right? So this is important, especially when you start working as an agile coach within a new organization. It's important to start working with the management. And first of all, we think is important is that you need to understand and explain them why we measure. We need to understand the problems, the pain points the management team is currently having, and we need to understand so what would be important for them. But also we need to explain them. So why should we apply, why should we start implementing some sets of metrics, right? Because many times it comes that the management team is preoccupied about the lagging indicators, right? So they say, okay, financial revenue is important, our profits are important, but when it comes to some really leading indicators like net promoter score or customer satisfaction, et cetera, they say, okay, well, we are not sure because for us, money is important. All the rest is something, secondary. So this is it. And you need to work with the team, with the management team to explain them. So why should we measure and why should we focus on the important points, not only on the financial aspects? Alan, would you like to add something to it?
Oh, I agree with Yury, and one of these questions we can ask a management team, what is important for them to see on these metrics. And could be, they are still in the old school, they want to see the past, hoping to predict the future, but then we can guide them and explain them, as Yury said, what other options they might look like. And then we could also coach them and make them to think about their vision, their strategy for the next 2 years or 3 months or whatever. And based on that, we can ask them the question, okay, how you are going to measure success of your vision or of your strategy for the next 2 years, how that look like, and what leading indicators you will use it to measure success of that.
Right. That's it. Now, when it comes to a set of metrics, right? So we talked a bit about how should we work with the management team, so what metrics are important, and now it comes to how should we compose our set of metrics, right? So another question to the audience. So how many of you guys have a specific set of metrics implemented in your project? Or is it just a velocity or like cycle time? What else? Is it something strategy behind these decisions when you compose a set of metrics? So how is that? Anyone?
So like for my organization, I used to follow commitment reliability, that is one matrix, velocity and burn down chart. So these are the three major metrics I used to generally prepare and send across to the management.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, also I see in the chat committed percentage, unplanned percentage, feature cycle time, and backlog health. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Also very interesting. Very interesting sets of metrics. Luis says there are the easy ones, but the hard ones are dependent on what story you want to tell as well. So
No,
I haven't worked them out yet.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, and here, the last piece of advice is that choose wisely, right? So that's why we asked this question, because you need to understand what points to cover. Because sometimes, this is another interesting aspect, you need to measure. Well, I guess it's more about a bit more matured agile teams, where you got all these technicals and agile practices in place, where you can add some more metrics, and we'll talk a bit about this later. But sometimes, your speed of delivery is also important. And sometimes when you're too fast delivering, it's not that good, because your customers could complain about that. You know what? So your releases are so fast that we don't have any time to upgrade to the newer version of your product. So, and it causes some complications in our environment. So that's why we're not that happy with that. And sometimes it's also important to, slow down a bit with your releases to be able to improve the other aspects like customer satisfaction rate. So choose wisely. Right. Now, well, then after we coach the team of our managers, we need to coach our own team, right? So development team and so on. So our advice is to make sure that the set of metrics you've chosen to be implemented are reviewed periodically, and and is surrounded with conversations. Because if you don't have these conversations around your metrics, it means that your metrics are useless. It's as simple as that, right? So, Alan, would you like to share your experience with this?
Yes, absolutely. And like everything what we are doing, both personal life, but especially also in corporate world, it's wise to reflect on what we have achieved so far, what we can do even better. And having wisely selected metrics can help us as well on that. And of course, when we talk with the team and when we are working with the team, people metrics, well-being, how, asking team members how they feel, how was the previous release, did they experience any joy or frustration, and what's happened there. And then we could coach them, and guide them to try to improve their way of working and not overloading themselves and get unnecessary stress.
Yeah. So another question to the audience, guys, how frequently you review the metrics with your teams? And what are the opportunity you use to do that? Like during the retrospective, or maybe you send some emails with the graphs. What's your way of doing that? Or maybe you review them during the daily stand-ups.
Dave wrote every sprint during the
Retro-like meeting.
Yeah.
I like this one, retro-like meeting. Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Who else would like to share?
Generally not with the team, maybe like with the management. So once the sprint is over, so we share the metrics, and once the review is done, so once we close the sprint, so we share the burn down chart with the team, and what are the spikes are there in the chart. So we used to discuss and make sure that the team is properly updating the Jira so that it can be easily tracked in the burn down chart. So this is the approach usually I used to follow.
Oh, okay, great. If I pronounce correctly, Shashimani.
Yeah, yes, correct.
Thank you very much for sharing. And Louise also posted out of cycle. And when someone asks, oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Louise.
let's move on.
Mm.
So another thing that is really interesting is that metrics evolve over time, right? So we start with a set of metrics. So we've chosen some of them to be implemented, and we are reviewing them periodically. So we do stuff like that. But we should understand that metrics evolve over time in terms that you would like to add some new metrics as the team evolves, right? So you could start with some simple metrics like velocity, capacity, burn down chart to visualize the progress towards the completion of all the items within the sprint. But also when it comes to the evolution of the team, if you will. So it's important to understand that you need to cover more and more aspects over time. So first of all, you attack the most important pain points, and then you use your retrospectives to identify more pain points. Maybe some of them would be completely new to the team, just because when when you fix one thing, you just notice that there's another thing to fix, and the team just never saw it before, never got this noticed. So this is very interesting thing to take into consideration. Yeah, Alan?
Yeah, and as we mentioned also in the beginning, it's about the people, and of course, we should ask the teams what does make sense for them to measure so we can improve it. So we should always have that in our mind, not for the metric's sake, but what makes a team kind of more comfortable to see how they are evolving and how they are progressing during, for example, development or during some other task that they are doing.
This is also about people, about cultural aspects within the organization and the team, because we'd like to encourage them to go with the continuous improvement flow, because it's really important. And many teams are just not thinking about this continuous improvement flow. They don't have this continuous improvement mindset. They just, they are too focused on, we need to complete these story points by the end of the sprint, but well, then it's just about that. It's not about seeing some big picture and thinking about so how do we see ourselves in the next few releases, right, in terms of our performance. Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk a bit about the technical practices and the metrics associated with these practices. So many teams are using these practices like extreme programming or TDD, and here it's really interesting because you could start implementing some metrics that are related to the product quality, right? Like some standard software metrics like cyclomatic complexity, or the amount of the lines of the code, etc., etc. So here it depends on the context, I guess, because we could have some mature teams starting implementing all these practices and starting thinking about, okay, so we've got our set of metrics, our initial set of metrics in place. So we've got our velocity, lead time, cycle time, whatever else covered, and we'd like to focus on our technical excellence, and would like to start measuring our quality processes and our software development processes. So, and here when all these standard metrics come into play. So yeah, Alan, would you like to share your experience with working with this type of technical practices?
Yeah, actually, I would like to start to ask our audience if we have a technical people here, what is your experience with some of these technical metrics, if you use it?
Yeah, so like, do you have code reviews, stuff like that, and how do you measure the quality of the code? How do you know it's a good code or bad code? Is it scalable? Maybe you've got
Sure.
some technical leads. Code
Mm.
review amongst the team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Test coverage. Not a good one.
That's where vanity metrics looks like. We can tweak it a little bit. So everything is green, like a watermelon, you know, everything green outside, but everything red inside. Yeah, a lot of code reviews, yes. Yeah. Okay. And this Louise's comment, it's yeah, something really interesting. As Yury mentioned in previous slide, you know, then it's time to see how we can continue improve and see, okay, this is one of these challenges we are kind of doing because someone told us to do, but we are not doing anything about it. So it's kind of a good starting point to initiate discussion within the team and maybe leadership team or whoever it's included there. Thank you, Louise.
Yeah. Also, interesting thing here is, Fernando, would you like to talk a bit more about this, why test coverage is not so good? It's just interesting because, I mean, test coverage itself, I'd say it's an interesting metrics to apply when you're working on your CI/CD pipeline, right? So when you're trying to establish your DevOps pipeline, it's not that bad to have this. You know, I don't know if many of you are familiar with the concept of quality gates, right? But quality gates would have this. This test coverage metric, and it's not that bad. Just wanted to understand a bit more, why is that not a good one?
So I will say that no metric is bad per se. It's really how you use it. So if you are measuring test coverage, you're going to get test coverage. Now, some of the tests really do not justify the effort to make those tests. Some tests can be very expensive to make, may not give you a good return of that time, but also proving that you test something automatically doesn't prove that that something will do what the business wanted it to do. It just proves that the software will not break, which is not bad, but you cannot use that by itself as a measure of just quality.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because here Luis asks the question, is 100% test coverage what you want, right? So yeah, I guess it's not that like 100% because it can rarely be found like a quality gates that would have this amount of percentage covered. Like we usually would have like around 80 to 90%, but 100 seems to be too you know, too complicated to achieve, in fact. Yeah.
And that's also linked, you know, with you know, what is good enough. I've worked with QA for 12 years, so I know this concept. So, you know, what is good enough, and you know, did we involve our customer in this testing or planning of the test coverage? And there is a lot of these things we should take into consideration as well. But great point. Thank you, Fernando.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Now we're going to cover the part of don'ts. Okay. And now we see another comment from Dave. When it comes to testing, and many companies combining development testing into one role, do you see a reduction in test quality coverage? It depends on how you develop your T skills. In fact, that's it. So how you invest into your trainings and knowledge development of your team. So because, yeah, right. So if you got a brand new team where you got all the juniors in place and you just tried to start combining this development plus development plus testing approach, I'd say it would be complicated to achieve better results in a short term. So you need to invest in how you develop your skills around the team, or maybe around the teams. So it would be a nice idea to establish this community of practice so that your team would be able to learn from the other more experienced colleagues. And I see it as some valid approach to it. I know if it makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about our last part of the presentation. So these are don'ts, right? So something that you'd rather avoid, right? Working with the teams. So, and this slide, well, represents a really common problem when it comes to working with the management teams that are recently started applying agile practices approach in their organizations. So, and this is how it is. So we've got our velocity, and the first brilliant, fabulous idea that comes to manager's mind is that we'd like to compare it. You see this smiley is just, it thinks about it like, yeah, it seems to be a brilliant idea. Well, actually not. Just because you've got this comparison, that this comparison would result in a toxic work environment. That is it. Because you would establish a competition, and the competition, well, it's not a healthy competition, because velocity is not the metric we'd like to use for comparing. This metric we'd like to use internally for the team, so that they understand how should they plan for the next sprint, how should they improve their estimations, right? So how should they improve their precision when they estimate? So this is what velocity is about. It's not about comparing the velocities around the teams and trying to establish, what team performs better than the others. And so it's really bad approach, we'd say. Now, guys, anyone ever had this experience with the management train to compare the velocity around the teams?
Yeah, I have faced this one actually. So, for example, like in my sprint one, there was 27 velocity, and sprint two, it went to around 37. So this kind of question appears, like how the sudden 10 story point hike has been there. So basically, like a lot of parameter involved. So we actually hired another developer, which we assign a 8 story point. Another developer, we increase the capacity to more 2 story point. So this way it happens. So lot of a discussion needs to be done to the convey to the management, that why there is a sudden spike in the velocity.
Great
Okay,
point.
and so what was your approach to work with the management to explain them that it's not really a valid approach, or it's still there? I mean, no changes ever made.
No, it's a forecast actually. So my suggestion to the management is, we should not judge the team based on the velocity. So suppose, for example, I have two scrum teams. Okay, so one velocity is around it is average on like 45, another is 37. So the management feels like, why not the other team is also having the same velocity? So it's all depends on the story point estimation and the capacity of the team, like number of developer works in the particular in the particular scrum team.
Yeah, right, Shashimani. It's really complicated, and this is a really important point we should take into consideration, and we start working as soon as possible with the management team to alleviate somehow this this approach, right? So we need to establish a truly agile mindset, not only just we've got this agile metrics, and it's like this really famous quote like we'd like to be agile. Okay, so we bought Jira, now we're agile. Okay, but well,
Yeah,
it's actually a bit more complicated and sophisticated than that, than just you just bought Jira. Okay, I bought Jira. Yeah, that would be nice, but it doesn't work in the real world.
It's also linked if he wants to go.
Exactly. Some feels like, they're if they're using Jira and it's a project management tool, so they are fully into Agile. It's a mindset with the some of the management or the organization. So basically, like, the exact implementation of the process, which tells, like, yeah, whether you're using Agile or not. It's not only the Jira.
Right, right. That's it. That's it. So we've got another question from Dave. Is there any value to using metrics for individual team members so they can review, improve their performance, or is that detrimental to the team as a whole? Nice question. Nice question. I'd say that individual metrics, well, let's see. If they are truly individual, so that only the person knows about its existence, well, I guess maybe some of them, but I'd say a good approach would be to work with this person in terms of their career development, or maybe, well, let's see. So there are two sides to cover here, because the first side is that's just in terms of the career development. So maybe a person is interested in some particular framework or technology, or he or she would like to to grow his or her career as an architect or whatever. So, and we well, I couldn't say we, because it depends on who is carrying the functional manager role, right? So, and okay, let's say there is a functional manager role. So the functional manager role would help this person to achieve these goals, right? So these are some really particular goals that has nothing to do with the team itself, right? So this is one side. Another side is that if we're talking about the software quality, right? So we could use code review meetings as an opportunity to work with this person to help him or her to understand what was not that good in the code, and what could be fixed, right? With some best practices applied. So I'd say this would be an approach, because if you have these individual metrics available to the whole team, yeah, this would be the same as we compare velocity around the teams. It would create this unhealthy um, uh, challenge, right? So, and this is something we'd like to avoid by all means. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree with Yury, but it's really great question. And then instead of creating collaboration within the team, we will start creating competition, and that will create most likely unhealthy culture within the team. So if it's something personal development, many organizations, at least I worked for, they are focusing on individuals. But when we are working on particular products or some development, I will suggest to keep it on the team level. Then they can support each other. If I have some challenges with the test coverage, for example, then I know I can talk with Yury or Saraya or someone, say, oh, can you help me here? And then we can engage in collaboration. So I can grow thanks to my team.
Right. And also here Dave says, speaking about personal development, finding ways to improve accuracy with story pointing and cycle time for stories. The fact is, yeah, this is also some really common problem when a team starts implementing this estimation technique. No matter what this technique is, it is complicated because it's ambiguous, because it's quite subjective. So it's not that you can just go ahead and implement one size fits all approach around estimation. So you need to understand the context. You need to take into account the famous cone of uncertainty, right? So because when we start working on a product, well, we do not know too much things about this, but we just need to keep evolving, keep developing the product, and as much as we learn, we know more about the product, and the product is more stable, and our estimations go really, let's say, they are more precise, let's say. Okay, so this is it. And but On the individual level, it's quite subjective. If you ask me like, okay, so I'm as a developer, how should I estimate? Well, if I know the technology well, so the framework or whatever I'm working with, okay, I'm going to say, okay, this stuff is easy, this stuff is harder, this stuff is really complicated, and this is my personal scale to establish, right? But also we should take into consideration the scale established on the team level, right? So, well, the only way to achieve, higher precision is to do it empirically, is to try and fail and go again and again, and then finally you would find the perfect way, the perfect pace for your team. Yeah. Okay. And let's go to our last slide. So this is, well, let's say this is it's a kind of summary, right? So too many metrics and comparison strategy. Well, the fact is this set won't work in the real world, and we could have, some poor consequences of this choice. So most important thing we should think about is our team's health, right? This is our priority all the time, as when we work as a Scrum Masters or Agile coaches or enterprise coaches, whatever, right? And the last one is to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Try to start small with a small set of metrics. Make sure that these metrics are surrounded with conversations, and then it's just up to the team where to go next in terms of their performance improvement. Yeah. So guys, Alan, would you like to add something more to this slide, or should we go to the question answer session and have some talks?
Measure what matters and left rest for later. But yeah, let's open for the questions or comments.
Yeah, guys. So we'd like to hear from you. So any questions you'd like to ask? So we're ready to answer. Yeah, Corinne, go ahead.
Hey, thank you for running this session. It's been helpful. The question that I had is more around program level metrics. Any recommendations of what are good items to track there? And to your point of keeping it simple and making sure that we're not just, pulling data to pull data, but any metrics that have been useful for you at the program level.
Okay. I would say take a look into evidence-based management, right? So evidence-based management is something that would help you when it comes to the program level metrics, right? So and how to establish them. But I'd say it depends on what you'd like to achieve at the program level. For example, I'll give you one example. So if technical debt is something that is a big problem in your organization, you'd rather like to gather some technical depth metrics from all the teams and then summarize them at the program level to see how does it work, okay? So, and then you could apply another metric to this set, like you got your technical depth and then you got your customer satisfaction level, okay? So, and also release frequency, right? So these three metrics, so release frequency, customer satisfaction level, and technical depth. And then you will measure it at the program level to see if there are any correlation between them. So that would be one approach. Well, as soon as we know more about your current context, we could say more. But from my perspective, I'd say take a look into evidence-based management guide. I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but this is really helpful when it comes to scaling metrics.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and to your point, I think it does matter about the specific situation and what you're trying to solve. So that totally makes sense to your point.
All right.
Any other questions or comments?
Any more questions? Yeah.
Thank you. It was a good session.
Thanks.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Dave.
much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, really, it was very helpful and useful session. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, guys, if there's no more question, I think we can wrap up here. So thanks everyone for joining, and have a good day, you all.
And
Yes.
Yury, last comment. Sorry, guys. We are measuring ourselves, right? And we are on time. Keep it simple.
That's right. That's right. I know, Alan, if you'd like to share our LinkedIn pages, just so all of you who wants to connect with us and maybe ask a question in private, no problem. Just
yes, I will post it on the Meetup channel so people can reach there, and then we will send also email afterwards.
Yeah, sounds good.
And if people are interested with these presentation materials, we can also attach that.
Yeah, we're going to attach a PDF with the content of this session.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to meet you in this popular time. So have a wonderful day and evening, and enjoy your weekend.
Right, guys. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.